Hey everybody, Scroft here. Welcome back to Farming Simulator 25. We're doing it again. What crop makes the most money? In FS22, I did this video, and to this date, it's got 695,000 views. It's my most viewed video, and I put a lot of time and effort into it then, and I've gone even bigger this time and put even more effort in. I know a lot of people enjoyed the video and got some useful information out of it and the spreadsheets that came with it, and I've done it all again. So hopefully it is useful, informative, and all that good stuff. So before we move on, I'll just go through some of the details. 14 crops was what was in FS22. I tested, found out what crop makes the most. That time I didn't do any expenses, but this time around I have gone and tried to do some expenses and go a bit more in depth. So it really does help a lot of people out. The difference with FS25 is we've now got 25 crops, but I've only tested 22. Grass and poplar and oilseed radish have not been tested because it is just an arable test, and because grass you can keep regrowing and harvesting it, and you do baling, sell it fresh, make silage, whatever. I've not tested grass for that reason. Grass is never a bad thing, so keep that in mind if you're new to the game. If this is the first time, if you're new to Farming Simulator, then grass is always going to make you a lot of money, if not the most money you can make in the game. And oilseed radish is a cover crop, so if you're not sure what a cover crop is, it's basically a crop that you place down in between two crops, maybe in the winter months, maybe in the kind of after harvesting, you'll place it down, then you'll kind of mulch it back into the soil. It gives you one stage of fertilization. So we don't even sell that. So they're the three that I've discarded from this test, but there is 22, which is a massive increase on the 14 that I did last time around. So yeah, it took a lot longer to do. So I'll quickly just go through the process so you can understand the actual order I did this in to get maximum yield on the field, because that's the most important thing. It's the maximum potential yield that we get, so it gives us the biggest yield for each crop type, and then we sell it at the best price to get the most return. So what I first did with field 4 right in front of me here, this field, is I started off by mulching it, and then I put some lime down, so spread some lime in this whole field. I then ploughed the field so I didn't have to worry about weeds or anything like that. And then I did some stone picking to get them out the ground. And at that point, I created a save point so I could keep going back, and it saved me a bit of time. Every time I booted up the save game, I planted in the crop with fertilizer built in to the seed, to the planter or the seeder. This is the planter here. Now, it's important to keep in mind what equipment I've used, because I actually also wanted to work out the amount of money you make per minute with each crop in the field, because I think that gives you a good idea the amount of work that goes in but the return you get. Because a crop might give you a lot of money, but it also could take a lot more time in the field, a lot more work, so it's maybe not as valuable to you. So I thought I'd do that as a metric that we can look at as well. So after planting and ferting as a combination, I went on to roll the field, which is important to do. And then I spread some more fertilizer using solid fertilizer for this. And then finally, I went and harvested the crop. So with that, let's just have a quick look at the prices in the shop, because you've obviously got this graph here and it's telling you when the best price to sell is and the least down. Now, I've manually tested this. I didn't go off this chart at all. I wanted to see it myself. I've visualized all the prices for each one of the 22 crops that I'm testing here. I made a note of each one every month at 9 a.m. using 1 day per month. So every day that passed, it would sort of switch to the next month, and I made a note of each one. So I'm going to just give you a random example here. I'm going to pick out the closest one here. So sorghum, for example. I'm going to go check now quickly what the best time to sell was in the data that I got, and see if it matches up with this graph, because I know at the start of FS22 there's obviously a few bugs every time a new game comes out. I actually noticed that the graph last time around didn't work very well. It didn't match up at all, so I'm hoping this time around it is. So I'm just going to quickly pick one at random. So we're looking for January, so I'll find out what price I got in January. So for sorghum, the best price I actually saw was in January, and I got £959, which is a little bit higher than this, so that's good news. And you can trust this graph playing FS25 at the start. So let's bring up the prices, and I can show you exactly what I got in each month. So you can see that I've put a lot of data into this. It's all the 22 crops on the left-hand side there, and then the months going across, and each one is where I've jotted down the price. So if you look at barley, for example, first month, which is January, highlighted in green there, you can see the key to the right shows that dark green is when the best price was, or the highest price, and then the darker red in July is when the lowest price was. And I've also put in the notes section there that the prices were taken at 9 a.m. for the first 12 months on the river bends, spring, and field 4 Hopefully it's clear to you. If you want to screenshot this right now, have it on hand so you can keep a track of it. But I will be sharing all this at the end, and I'll talk more about that in a second. Right, so let's get into each crop now. We'll go in alphabetical order, which is the new way that Giants are actually doing it in the prices menu now, whereas before I think we always used to have like wheat, barley and oats at the top with canola just under it. Now it's in alphabetical order, so I'm going to match that and show you all the 22 crops in alphabetical order. So let's start off with barley. So barley turned out pretty good, and also where I'd expect it. It has gone up a little bit this time round, just like wheat has, and oats and wheat and oats. So the straw crops have gone up, which is good because we use them the most. I'd say they're the most common crop to do in game. In field 4, I got a yield of 11,681 litres. I also picked up 44,772 litres of straw, which is really important to keep in mind because we're going to add that on top because we get it for free, and if you sell it straight at the best time to sell straw, that is a potential earning. So I'm taking that into consideration when I say what crop makes the most money, because yeah, we can use the straw. So for canola, I got 7,185,000 litres, which is less than barley, but what we expect. Kind of falls in line. What I did notice about canola though is I got there was hardly any seed consumption. In fact, I only used 4 litres of seeds whilst planting that into field 4. Moving on to carrots now, and by God, was carrots a nightmare. Same with all the root crops that came from the premium expansion. We have lost some of the equipment in the base game, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but because I had to use an AI worker to help me out, it was just painful, but I've had to be true to what I got for harvest. But when we get in a second into the time section, you can see that does take a bit of a hit for carrots, but we did get a good yield in the end. We got 65,425 litres, which is really good, but you'd expect that from a root crop. Moving on to corn now. Good crop, really common to do. A lot of people may grow it for maize silage or to do chaff, but as a crop itself, it does give off quite a bit. It also doesn't use too much seeds as well. So for 11,193 litres, I think that's pretty decent. Moving on to cotton, we got 6,047 litres for cotton. Not a bad crop to do. Again, doesn't use loads of seeds. Also, quite a unique crop to try out in the game, but it's even more unique because of the fact we produce bales, big cotton bales. So it's not like we're actually, taking a loose grain or product in a trailer. Yeah, we're dropping bales out in the field, so you have to unload them. So it is a unique crop to try out, and if you're new to the game, I'd recommend giving it a go because it does actually return a decent yield. Right, moving on to one of the new crops that was in FS22. It's a bit of a painful crop for me, I have to say. That with olives, because of the vines and the way it works, it costs a lot. The initial cost to place this down is around 200,000 in field 4, but the good thing about it is just that first initial blow. But we got 5,814 litres, and like I said, there's no seeds or anything like that because obviously you're placing it down and it's a construction cost. Right, moving on to the first one of the new crops for FS25, and it was green beans. Now, there's some really good new crops, especially with yield-wise, but green beans was quite modest. It wasn't amazing, didn't impress me too much, and I think a lot of the Oxbow equipment does have a small header, so it's going to take a lot more time. So keep that in mind, but it's not bad in small doses or if you're doing multiplayer, but I think 8,487 isn't too bad. Did use quite a lot of seeds, 170 litres. More than what we see on the crops like canola, corn and cotton, but then again it falls in line with what you would be using for barley. So we're flying through these, but the next one is another new crop that's come to FS25, and it's long grain rice. Now, I was pretty skeptical at the start about rice being added into the game, but having now done every crop in FS25 from start to finish, I have to say that long grain rice and even rice was quite enjoyable. It's definitely a new gameplay dynamic, and with the water physics, especially when you're doing rice, I actually really enjoyed it. And to get a return of 10,127 litres was pretty decent. 297 litres of seeds though, so definitely more than what we've used so far. That's the highest so far. So if you're scaling that up to a massive field, because field 4 wasn't the biggest, it definitely was bigger than the field I did in FS22. I thought, let's go a little bit bigger this time. Better representation to this whole testing that I'm doing. But yeah, you're going to keep that in mind that it will scale up. So the next one is oats, one of the grandfather crops, let's say, to Farming Simulator. Again, always gives off less than kind of barley and wheat. Does give a better price to sell, always has done. and it also gives us straw, which is a bonus. So I got 6,936 litres, and again I got the exact same amount of straw to the litre, which was 44,772. So the next one is again another vine crop. This one gave it a little less than the grapes, 5,670. But again, you know, initial cost, it's definitely something different to try out. But for me, it's not up there. And I think when you see the order at the end of like what's the best crop and the worst, you might not be surprised at where these fall, because they don't perform that well. So we're moving on to another one that came from the premium expansion of FS22, which is the root crops. We got 3 at the time, and this is the second one now, and this is parsnips. Give off 60,805 litres, not bad at all. Only used 4.08 to be exact, litres of seeds, which is nothing. It really isn't nothing. It's not bad. It's not bad at all to do. I just think that it takes a long time, and with the equipment that we have in the game, it's probably the most painful. You need a worker if you want to go above 1 row, and that's just 1 metre. In fact, it's 0.8 metres working with. That's just insane to do a single player on your own. If you are multiplayer or use a worker, you can go up to 3 metres, but even that is quite painful depending on the field size you're doing. So yes, you're going to return a lot when it comes to yield, but there's better crops to do. So now we're on to peas. Again, another new crop to FS25. I have to say that out of all the new crops, this is probably the most disappointing one for me. We only got 5,840 litres, and we used 152 litres of seeds. So again, probably about average, but the yield for this definitely was reduced in comparison to, you know, even if we look back at the other one in the kind of same bracket, which was green beans. This, you know, green beans got around 3,000 more litres for that. So it definitely takes a hit. But we'll have to just see at the end where it kind of falls in place with the price and everything. Right, so potatoes is the next one. And in FS22, potatoes and sugar beets were king. Yes, they take a long time. Yes, there is a lot of work to them. But there is some decent equipment out there. You can harvest on your own in single player. You can store it in the actual harvester as you're kind of going through the field on your passes. And it gives off so much, and we can get about 3 metres as a working width. So I'm quite happy with potatoes and sugar beets. I think they're like, when you look at root crops, it makes potatoes and sugar beets look really easy, and that's saying something, because they used to be the 2 crops that we all avoided because of the fact that it took so much, but they always do so well. In fact, in FS22, sugar beets was the crop that gave the most money. Will it be the same in FS25? We'll have to wait and find out. I got a yield of 52,100 litres, but it did use quite a lot of seeds, which was 2,271, which you'd expect with potatoes. But the good thing about it, you can buy potatoes separately as a seed, like it's like a box, and that only costs £475 per 1,000 litres, whereas normal seeds cost £1,260 per 1,000 litres. The next one is red beets. 58,504 litres we got from this. Again, only 4 litres of seeds used, but it was very painful to do in the fields. I think them 3 from the premium expansion were the worst crops for me to actually do for this test. Now we're getting on to rice, and I really enjoyed doing rice. Definitely unique and new to the game. You know, that's not something I thought I'd want to get involved in too much, but I actually have to say it wasn't that bad. It was a good change to the game, and I got 7,748 litres. Now, because of the way that the actual seeder works for this, they're like packs of saplings that you can either purchase or grow yourself in a greenhouse. Now, if you grow them in the greenhouse, you're obviously reducing the cost, but I went and purchased 2 kind of like pellets of the rice saplings. Each pellet holds 24 units, and each unit costs around 18 quid, or it's £450 per 24 units. So I actually used 92 units to plant this whole field, and with that it cost me £1,725 as an expense for seeds or the saplings. It's a really good crop, fun to do, and it also returns really well. So the next one is sorghum, 9,978 litres. Only 21 litres of seeds used. Really modest crop, not too bad. I imagine it's going to fall in somewhere around the middle ground. It's nice to do. It's different. It looks better in game as well, I've noticed. But yeah, kind of just nothing too special. So the next one is soybeans. Now, I really like soybeans in FS19. It might have been my go-to crop. I think in 22 I preferred doing canola and things like that. But I really enjoyed soybeans. I thought that it just paid off really well. Whereas this time around, and I think also in FS22, it's dipped. It has dipped in comparison. But it's still not a bad yield because of the fact the price is always higher for soybeans at the best time. But I got 5,476 litres. I used 130 litres of seeds, and I also had a fertilizer cost. And I just want to add this in. I will talk about fertilizer in a second. But normally, especially if you're playing with precision farming, it won't cost anything for soybeans to do fertilizer, because they kind of like fertilize themselves the way it works. But it does in base game have a fertilizer need, and you have to spray that down or spread it down depending on what you're doing. So it did cost me. So the next one is actually the last of the new crops we got in FS25. And it's the best one. It really is the best one out of all the new crops. Spinach is excellent because you can harvest it twice from one planting. So I ended up getting 55,860 because of that fact. I only used 6 litres of seeds, which is insane for the amount that I got in return. And the fertilizer, yes, went up because I had to re-fertilize after I did the first harvest. But I didn't need to worry about planting or anything like that. It was literally just fertilizer, take care of some weeds, and then I'm harvesting again. So the next one is sugar beets, which was, like I've already mentioned, the best one from FS22. I got 70,325 litres of sugar beets, and there's not much else to say with that. It always returns really well and pays really well. Yes, it takes more time in comparison to like using a standard harvester or a corn header or something like that, but it's still a lot better than the other root crops, and it gives you so much in return that it always seems to pay off no matter what you do. So the next one is sugar canes, and it was the highest yielding crop that I got in Field 4. This is the one that gave off the most in return. I got 87,320 litres, which is massive, massive numbers, but it always is with sugar cane. So we got 2 left, and the next one is sunflowers. I got 6,473 litres for this, which isn't bad at all. Again, I think it's probably going to be like a middle ground crop. Only 87 litres used. I also just want to quickly point out that I did put beehives all around the sides of the field. So for things like sunflowers, and it could be potatoes, I forgot which one it is now, canola, I think it's canola. There's a couple of that give you just a small bonus just for having bees next to these fields where they can go and pollinate. So I did do that, so we are definitely at the maximum yield. So the last one is probably the most common crop to do, especially for new players. You always start off, you're either going to do wheat, barley, or oats, but wheat is the most common crop to do, I'd say, in FS. Any game, FS22, FS25, I am sure a lot of people are going to be trying out wheat straight away. And we got a really good yield for this. I'm happy with this. 10,830 litres. And again, we got the exact same amount of straw as we got for the previous 2 straw crops. We got 44,772 litres. So I'll throw this up right now so you can have a look. All the information's in there. Like I said, you can screenshot it now. You can see the amount of seeds that I used for each one, the cost of it, the cost to buy 1,000 litres of them seeds. You can see the highest one there is rice. It's 1,700. And then if you look at the fertilizer, you can see which ones I use fertilizer on. You can also see the price as well for the fertilizer. And then you've got the fertilizing costs in a whole. So you can see the highest one there was spinach, because I had to do it twice, which is technically three times, because you have to do 1 stage each time. So that's 3 passes for me of fertilizer for spinach, so it cost the most, which you'd expect. And then lime as well, I put that in, and the amount that it cost me to do it, and then the actual cost or the expense of lime. But yeah, take a screenshot, have a look at it. You can see the extra expense that I got on long grain rice and the rice, which is by just the charge for watering the field. So take that into consideration as well. Right, so let's move on to the next bit. Right, so let's speed this up a little bit. But what you're looking at now is the time and how I calculated that. This section here to the right, I actually was just using as I was going, and it's in minutes, and I rounded it up to the nearest 15 seconds, or a quarter of a minute, basically. So you can see that each one with the seeds that I used the first time, and then the second time, and then the planting time for me, rolling time, the fertilizing spreading time, which was only a minute for me if I did 1 pass, because I was just using a spreader with a large width, and then the harvesting time varied depending on which one I was doing. You can see the highest one there was sugarcane at 42 minutes, just because it's a nightmare and I have to use a worker, and it seems like, yeah, it just doesn't move unless you're in the right position, so it's constantly stop-starting. But I wanted to be true to the time that I used it, that I did. And then I've also got the time before, so it took me 24.5 minutes to prep the field to that save point, so I had to make a note of that. And then from that, I could work out the total times, and then also, you know, from that I could work out on the left-hand side the income per minute of field work when I work out the yield and the income, and then the best price to sell it and what you get for that. So that's the way I've done it. But at the end, I have got the lists of, you know, what crops makes the most money before expenses, after expenses, and also what crop makes the most money when you take into account per minute of field work. So we'll have a look at that, but screenshot it if you like, and then, yeah, you can always have a deeper dive into it. So with all that data that I got, I could do this kind of overview, which is what you're looking at here. You can see that each crop, if we look at barley and go across, you can see that the best month to sell barley is January. And the price in January, so the best price to sell the crop was 686. Taking into account the yield I got, you can see how much money I would get if I sold it at the best price, which is 8,000. And then I worked out also the best month and the best price for straw, which was £89 per 1,000 litre. And then the money I'd get from selling all that 44,000 litres of straw, I'd get 3,000. So then adding that to the 8,000, you can see that the total income combined with straw is going to be this. Now, that's my total income. I'm taking straw into account because it is a product we can sell from a harvest. And then with that, I kind of just wanted to show you the decrease. So this is the combined income, so which is this tab there, after you take into account the seeds. And then this is a combined income after fertilizer. So it's not adding up. It's not, it's not taking seeds and then that. There's one at the end for all the expenses. This is just individually from. You can see how much it reduces. Same with lime. And then at the end there, you've got my total income after all expenses, and you can see how much it decreased by. And then at the end, really useful, probably the best one to look at is the percentage decrease after expenses. The worst one being grapes, which decreased by 24%. So the expenses obviously took quite a hit on that. But the best one is sugar beet again. And the reason for that is because you earn so much from it. So, the shorter the gap when it comes to expense, because the expense is always pretty much going to stay the same. But the more you earn, the smaller percentage you're decreasing that top earning by. So here we are. We're at that moment where I can show you what crop makes the most money. Now, this is including straw, so keep that in mind. So I've even made sure to put that clearly into this. So if you want to screenshot it, you can see that this is with straw. But yeah, sugar beets again, top. That is the crop that makes the most money. Potatoes just under it. And then the new one, spinach, comes in third place, which I'm really happy about because it is fun to do and you get to harvest it twice. Now, if you didn't get that second harvest, it wouldn't be up there. But because it is, it really adds to it. Sugarcane in fourth place, it's really good. Yes, it gives you a lot, but it's an absolute pain to do. And if I show you when you get to see the third one, which is about thyme, you'll see that it really does take a hit. Carrots as well are the same. Rice is not too bad up there. But if you look at the worst ones now, really disappointed about canola. Doesn't pay off as much as I'd like it to. But grapes and olive, as expected, really are just they're not fun to do. They're not. I'm just saying it now. And if you do like doing them, fair play to you. I take my hat off. You must be dedicated for that. But if you are interested in seeing them all and going through them individually like that, take a screenshot. I think the ones that point out there in the middle ground, like I said, barley, wheat. Sorghum actually falls a lot lower than I expected to, which is disappointing. Sunflowers and corn are down here. Soybeans isn't that bad. I think, like I said, I got not very good yield, but because of the price, it isn't too bad at all. But let's move to the next one, which takes into account expenses. So technically, this is like your profit. Now, with this tab and the next one, they are variables. You have to understand that if you use the same equipment as me, then yeah, the time's going to be the same. But you might invest into your equipment, making the time you work in the field shorter because of that investment, and then the times might be different for you. Same goes for the expenses. I haven't put fuel in because you might be using a completely different tractor that's just heavier on fuel. Who knows? You might try an electric tractor. So because of that, I've not put fuel in. But the one thing we all will use, and it's the same each time, is fertilizer, lime, and seeds. So I definitely added them as an expense. But I'm quite happy with that, especially spinach. Definitely try out spinach. It's going to pay off a lot, and it's fun to do. So the last one is to do with time. And like I said, this is a variable. If you invest heavier into the equipment you use, the time should come down, which means the money you make per minute of field work will go up. But for me, this is what I experienced. Sugar beet again, even though it took a lot of time in the field, because I got such a return, it still had the biggest payoff per minute of field work. Now, the initial cost of that equipment for the sugar beet was heavy. There is another one in the game now that's actually cheaper, and it's a 6 meter working width. I used a 3 meter. So if anything, you could spend less money, invest in that, and maybe even save time in the field. But I went with the traditional 3 meter all-in-one kind of harvester. But yeah, there's a potential to make sugar beet even higher because of that equipment that's now come into the game. Potatoes up there, cotton's up there, spinach is in fourth place now with this, which isn't too bad. But you've got to remember, it does take longer because you're harvesting twice. So the time is definitely going to increase for spinach, but it still gives off quite well. I mean, when you think about it, 358 pounds per minute of field work is not bad at all. And the real good one here is soybeans. Soybeans sitting at 5th place is a big jump up, and it was already doing really well. And then the ones below it, these three, make me really kind of quite chuffed because, again, the common crop that everyone uses, oats, barley and wheat, but not bad at all. Even the long grain rice isn't bad at all. I think if I look at all these again and take a standout, I think that I'm not surprised about sugar beet and potatoes. I am happy about spinach. I think that's really good. Happy about soybeans as well, and your grain crops that give off straw. But canola. Canola's the one that kind of disappoints me a little bit here because I really like doing canola in game. It is quite a common crop in the UK as well, so it's a little bit disappointing that it doesn't pay off as much, but it is what it is. But there we go. That is everything. Wow, it took me a long time, and I hope it does help you out playing FS25. If you're watching this on the day the video released, FS25 came out today, so I think it's perfect time for that because you can go out and use this information to help you plan out your crop calendars, what you're going to do, how you're going to make money, and I hope it has really helped you out. That was the aim of this video, and if it has, you know what to do. Give it a thumbs up for me because it really goes a long way. I'll just quickly show up the full spreadsheet so you can see what it looks like on screen right now. I am going to share this in my Discord page. As you can see, I've put it at the top calling it the Farming Bible. My intention is to add more tabs into this, going into each individual animal. So it's going to be cows, beef cows, goats, sheep, just like I did in FS22, but we're going to go bigger and better, more information for everybody. And I want to make one big spreadsheet called the Farming Bible for Farming Simulator players. But if you are interested in getting hands on this spreadsheet right now with just that one tab, it will be in my Discord as this video releases. So if you do want hands on, check the video description. Discord link will be there. Jump in. You'll be directed to where it is. But on that note, I'm going to leave the video there. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, hit that thumbs up if you really enjoyed it, if you found it informative. Hopefully it's helped you out. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more videos just like this one on Farming Simulator. See you, everybody.